how do you envision, as a leader in sustainable pharmacy health and healthcare solutions, how do you envision the future of healthcare industry and the pharmacy industry from a sustainability lens, especially? Where do you see that future going, and how do you see us achieving that?
Well, I hope that pharmacies will continue to adopt better sustainable products in every part of their business before legislation and government impose decisions. And this is really what we're hoping, that companies, corporation, and pharmacies are gonna get things done and moving on their own path and not waiting to be forced by the government.
Right.
Because this allows you to really, like I said before, engage your customers and your staff behind it, and be at the front of the wave, not being pushed. I feel like pharmacists are already enough pushed by a lot of political changes and regulation. Sustainability need to be something that you do from your heart. You believe in it. You understand that it's important to do it. It's not something that you won't be pushed through your throat.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm hoping to see. And to be honest, I see it on the market. So good thing. What I'm hoping also is just maybe if big pharmaceutical companies that are already generating a lot of waste, if they could on their side also ask themselves how could they support pharmacies and reducing their carbon footprint. They're not there yet. And there's kind of that disconnect, or at one point, a pharmacist wants to do a big difference. But it's so much the end of the line. It's limited. And we need big pharmaceutical companies to sit down with companies like Ecolopharm and say, you know what? You're right. Circularity is something that we need to do all together, because we're all generating waste. We're all transforming plastic at one point. We need to do something in a more collaborative way. So that's what I'm hoping to see within the next few years, because that would make a great change for pharmacies if we could work on that disconnect between pharmaceutical pharmacies and packaging suppliers like us.
Absolutely. How do you envision sustainability kind of taking a role in healthcare organizations in the next 5 to 10 years? What kind of initiatives, or, what can we expect from the work that you're leading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, certainly. So I'm at Hamilton Health Sciences, which added sustainability as a fourth pillar 6 months ago, which I was very happy about. And I'm on that green team. And before we forget, if you are a pharmacist, make sure that your corporate green team has a pharmacist on it. Pharmacy needs to be, again, that's 25%. So pharmacists have a massive role to play. So in the years to come, hopefully this becomes standard, that every hospital, long-term care, clinic, obviously you can have leadership within clinics, has a green team. This becomes part of the culture. This is on every agenda. And then we can start sort of raising the bar to what other things we can do. And we also need to work with industry, and that's a huge one. And I'm sorry, I don't remember if I mentioned the whole thing about supply chain and procurement. Is that study in England did show that supply chain or procurement is 62% of the entire puzzle. So that's the big piece.
Wow.
Where pharmacy was 22%, but then you have the other medical devices, 62%. A study just done in Laval in the last year suggested it is as much as 90%. And there's other studies that have been done, Aga Khan, putting it in the 70-75% range. So the stuff we buy is just massive. So in the years to come, we need to get those ideas across. And as part of it, we need to push our suppliers to make greener products. Mm-hmm. And this is where I actually have hope, because if there are rating systems to rate which companies make the greenest products. And so we can look that up from an industry perspective, like from where we work, and we can look it up in our personal lives and decide which type of shoes we want to buy. And one of the biggest ones is Science-Based Targets Initiative, SBTI. They've been around for a long time. There's a bunch of them like that are not for profits that rate companies. This is where we need to go. Mm. And I was at a conference yesterday that did have industry there, and it's interesting because I remember as a medical student at McMaster in the early 90s being told, do not interact with industry, do not interact with big pharma. It's a conflict of interest. And but I took it seriously. I did not see pharmacy reps for years and years because I thought I should be making decisions based on the evidence alone and not based on what a clever person is telling me at my desk about a certain product, because I'm buying it on behalf of the patient or right or promoting it. But now I'm doing a 180, because if we're going to solve this massive problem, we have to work with industry.
Yes. To also hear what Danette has to say to that about this.
Yeah, I think I'm not so great at figuring out the where are we going in the future. I think I'm probably more of a next 3 years person, and I think that we're going to see some exciting change. I really hope we'll be seeing some exciting change, and I think that we're at a time right now where things are truly pivotal, and I also think that we need to keep in mind that money talks.
Yes.
And so the reason that you still are dispensing DocuSate sodium is because people are still prescribing it. And the reason it's still being made is because it's still being prescribed.
Yes.
And so we need to keep in mind that pharmaceutical companies are profit driven. Mm-hmm. And their mission is to have the best return on investment for their shareholders. And so we need to ensure that we do everything we can to make sure that the only way you're going to get a good return on investment for your shareholders is if you're not poisoning the environment, and if you're actually cleaning it and fixing it. And fixing the problem. And so I think that that's very important. And I think it's part of our responsibility. I'm not saying that pharmaceutical industry wouldn't do this just because it's the right thing to do. But we can make them do it faster if it's the profitable thing to do.
How do you envision the future of healthcare and like pharmacy, especially from a sustainability lens? Like, what is it that we need to do better to integrate sustainability into pharmacy practice or healthcare practice?
So one of the things we're doing and looking at is going back to, we participated in a PharmD session at UBC to teach at Source. So this becomes part of the curriculum of pharmacy. When you graduate, you have a sustainability lens already. We've also developed an accredited program for pharmacy technicians so that we can help, because they're often consumer and have an opportunity just to remind consumers how to do this. But there's so many other areas. We have some thought leaders that are really leading the way in sustainability practice that have partnered with us. Just looking at your carbon footprint, and some of the interesting things I've read about are sustainable prescribing.
Yes.
this encouraging physicians and educating physicians now that pharmacist scope of practice has been enhanced about what sustainable prescribing is.
Yes.
And the importance of it and the impact of some of the products on the market compared to others. For example, inhalers have a larger impact, a carbon footprint than a lot of the products. Understanding that, and then even, and I dare I say, without getting into trouble, even the drug approval process.
Yep.
That be part of the drug approval process. What's your carbon footprint from manufacturing this drug and the life cycle management of that drug? So I think as we move forward, pharmacists can be advocates for some of this work. They can be educators to some of the stakeholders, healthcare stakeholders around this. When you have a patient that has like 5 different inhalers and gets really panicked when they think there may not be another puff left in, just give me another one just in case.
Yes.
Understanding the impact it has and maybe helping to educate, you really know when it's empty by doing this. We used to put them in a thing of water and see, and they floated. But I think there's lots of opportunity and creative opportunity for pharmacists to move forward in a sustainability footprint outside of managing the waste stream. Very important and one we're keen to promote, but certainly some of the thought leadership coming out of some of the pharmacists at U of T as well. We're really putting a serious lens on this, first through the self-assessment tool, but other people are looking at it. There's a gentleman in Kingston who's doing some really cutting edge initiatives in his pharmacy with regards to sustainability and managing his carbon footprint. So it's
wow, that's incredible. How do you envision the future of health and pharmacy, especially from a sustainability lens, in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what are some initiatives that you would like to see take place, which we may not be happening right now? Or, what can we do better to make sure that we're curbing this? And I know, you're already leading that charge, but just from an individual level, if there's anything, or even from a more national level, if how associations can support us with that.
Yeah, I think eventually what the big thing that I can think about is when you have a curve and you think about an engagement curve, right? You get your early adopters and then you get a topic becomes mainstream. But for something to really be normalized, it has to be regulated. It has to be kind of really incorporated in the day-by-day aspects of being a pharmacist, for example. Right. So if we think about the various bodies that are there, you can have universities, for example, leading the charge with regards to including sustainability-related education in their pharmacy curriculum. You can also have, if I think about, many years in the future, the big thing that would affect, every university, for example, is to include accreditation requirements that have sustainability related objectives. Right. So that is one big, massive one. Another one is specifically thinking about regulation of community pharmacies and hospital pharmacies, and thinking about key indicators that could take place in order to really move forward. And one can think about this with regards to pharmacy, but also with regards to sustainability and sustainable health systems in general. And I think we can learn a lot from organizations like the NHS in the UK, which has really kind of put forward key objectives with regards to, say, the elimination of desflurane. Yes. So desflurane is an anesthetic gas that has a massive emissions burden. They've also put in place a lot of really good, regulation and objectives with regards to MDI inhalers, dose inhalers, which also have a very high emissions burden as well. Right. So the good news is that there are a lot of groups that we can now learn from. Europe is ahead, the UK specifically is ahead, and we don't need to necessarily think of everything from scratch. Right. However, this is going to require all of us to really work together And this is going to require the pharmacy profession to also work with other entities as well, which I think is happening, is definitely starting to happen, but we're going to have to just continue in this direction. One thing that we also didn't talk about as much, one thing that we also didn't talk about as much, but I think is going to play a bigger and bigger role specifically is adaptation.
Right.
So, for example, heat waves can cause electronic medical record downtime.
Yes.
For significant periods of time. So how will we have processes in place to ensure that patients can still get treatment in a hospital setting or even in a community setting, regardless of these types of issues?
Agreed.
Another one is natural disasters. So what role will pharmacies play with regards to natural disasters? How can they ensure that they're still keeping up their patient care despite impacts? Another one is supply chain management. So how can you ensure that despite a disruption in supply chain management that comes from a climate event, how can one have a resiliency of the supply chain? So these are big questions, but they're going to require a lot of different types of people to come together and to really work together. And that's basically where I see pharmacy going.